Hello and welcome back to another rendition of Anastasia. So obviously it's been a little while since I posted the last one because, as I said in the last one, I've been on an epic adventure and I'm still processing all of that. So no doubt as I continue to read through these next pages over the next days and weeks, there's going to be insights and wisdom that I'm going to bring forward from my trip. Right now, I've been back for a few days, but I'm still recalibrating my energy. And I'm still there's just so much information that was coming in, so many insights, transformations, and I'm just allowing it to land. There's just a lot going on right now. So I'm just going to let it come out organically. But, let's start as we always start. Let's just put your hands on your heart and let's just take a deep breath. Let's just bring the energy back to center. So just taking a deep breath in, just holding and then breathing out. Let's do that again. And breathing out. I'd like you to do that one more time as I call back all of our energy. Let's call back all of our energy from any place, any time, any event, any being. Let's call it all back to self, all back to center. So as we take this journey together through these next few chapters, we can be fully present. We can receive the wisdom, the insights, the activations that are weaved within these pages. We can receive the messages that are for us right now. Let's also call in our dragons. Let's call in the elemental spirits, the nature spirits. One of them's coming up right now, the animal spirits. Let's call in the animal spirits. Let's call in our guardian angels, our angelic team of light, our star families. Let's call them all in to gather with us as we move through this next chapter. So this is Phoenix that's joining us. Okay, so a strange girl. The summer before our convoy ship had docked at one of the villages not far from these parts, we needed to buy bulk meat for the restaurant and spend some time in port. 60 kilometres further on there would be a particular dangerous section of the river, which meant our ship could not travel through there at night. Certain sections of the river were not equipped with navigation lights. So as not to waste time, we began announcing over our outdoor loudspeaker system as well as the local radio that we were throwing a party that evening aboard our vessel. The sleek white ship standing at the dock, glistening with a huge array of lights, and alive with the music pouring forth from it, inevitably attracted the young people of the village to such occasions. Indeed, on this particular evening, practically the entire local youth population could be seen making its way to the ship. Upon coming aboard, like any first-time visitors, they immediately set about taking a look around the whole ship to see what they could see. After touring the main, middle and upper decks, they ended up congregating in the restaurant and bar. The females, as a rule, took to dancing, while the male half preferred drinking. The unusual circumstances of being on a ship plus the music and alcohol always endangered a state of excitement, occasionally making big trouble for the crew. Almost always there was enough time and the partygoers made a collective appeal to extend the festivities just a bit longer, say by half an hour, and then more and more into the night. We've all been there, right? On this particular occasion, I was alone in my cabin. I could hear the music wafting up from the restaurant. As I was trying to make modifications to the convoy schedule for the remainder of the trip, all at once I felt myself being stared at. I turned around and glimpsed her eyes on the other side of the window glass. That was nothing unusual. Visitors often liked looking into the cabin's ship. I got up and opened the door. She didn't go away. She continued looking at me with some embarrassment. I felt I wanted to do something for this woman standing alone on the deck just outside my cabin. I wondered why she wasn't dancing like the others. Perhaps she was somehow unhappy. I offered to show her around the ship and she silently nodded. I took her all over the ship, showed her the main office which frequently impressed visitors with its elegant appointments, the rug covering the floor, the soft leather furniture, and the computers. Then I invited her into my cabin, which consisted of a study cum sleeping quarters and a carpeted reception room equipped with fine furniture, TV and VCR. If you're old enough like me, you'll remember the VCRs. I was probably most delighted at the time to impress a poor country girl with the achievements of our civilized world. I opened in front of her a box of candies, poured 2 glasses of champagne, and thinking to add the finishing touches to the impression, put on a videotape of Vika Tazganova singing Love and Death. Okay, I do struggle with the Russian words. The videotape included a number of other songs performed by my favourite artists. She lightly touched the champagne glass to her lips, looked intently at me and asked, a challenger, a challenge to drink the champagne. I expected just about any kind of question except that one. The expedition had indeed turned out to be quite a challenge. What with the difficult navigation conditions on the river and the crew, mainly students from the Marine Academy, smoking pot and pilfering merchandise from the store, we were frequently behind schedule and couldn't get to our planned stops on time where our arrival had been advertised in advance. These burdens and other worries often deprived me of the opportunity not only to admire the landscape along the river, but even to get a normal sleep. I muttered something meaningless to her, something like, never mind, we'll get through, then turned towards the window and polished off my glass of champagne. We went on talking about this, that or the other, listening to the videotape in the background. We talked right up until the ship docked once more at the end of the party cruise. Then I escorted her to the gangplank. Upon returning to my cabin, I made a mental note. There was something very strange and unusual about this woman. And as I left with an unexpected feeling of lightness and brightness after talking with her, that night I had my first good night's sleep in many days. So here we're seeing how when somebody is a very high vibration, that just their mere presence has a healing impact on others, because our body's consciousness, well, they're communicating with each other. That's why we are drawn to high vibrational people, right? Because it lifts us up. So it's good to be in those higher energies, you know, just our presence as we heal ourselves. You know, I say this on many of my videos. Every person that heals the planet. As we heal ourselves, we actually start to, that ripples out and it starts to impact other people in our lives and in our circle, and they're either going to level up to that, or that energy is going to be too confronting to them and they'll move out. But often people level up to those energies and it starts a trigger effect, a ripple effect, and they start to heal also. So it's interesting here that he's saying, you know, he's meeting this woman, after talking to her, he just feels good. He doesn't understand it logically why he feels good. He just feels good. He just knows something feels good, and then has his best night's sleep ever. Okay, let me just see if I can find where I am. At long last I understood why the woman on the ship had been Anastasia. So that was you, Anastasia. Yes, it was there in your cabin that I memorised all the songs which I later sang to you in the forest. They were playing while we were talking. You see how simple it all is. How did you happen to come on board? I was interested in seeing what was going on, how you all lived. After all, Vladimir, I'd been spending my whole time just taking care of Dakniks. If you remember, Dakniks are the gardeners. That day I'd hurried to the village, sold the dried mushrooms which the squirrels had collected, and bought a ticket to your party cruise. Now I know a lot more about the class of people you call entrepreneurs, and I know you pretty well too. I feel I owe you a huge apology. I did not know how things would turn out, that I would be so drastically altering your future. Only I can no longer do anything about it, since they have seen to the fulfillment of this plan, and they are answering only to God. For a time now, you and your family will have great difficulties and challenges to overcome, but then that time will all pass. And I have to say, I've read the second book, and boy, does it go through some difficulties and some challenges. It is tough. Still not understanding what Anastasia was specifically talking about. And again, when we are following our destiny, which is planted in our heart, which pulls us forward, we can go through a lot of challenges. It's a lot of spiritual initiations that we go through, and it's needed in order for us to actually face all those deeply buried subconscious programs and limiting beliefs, because we go through those challenges, they start to be surfaced and we have to work through them. So it can be challenging following our destiny, but it is rewarding and it is fulfilling. And at the end of it, we do get our pot of gold, right? We are growing and expanding through those challenges and through that journey to our destiny. It is worth it. Okay, so for a time now, you and your family will have great difficulties and challenges to overcome, but then that will all pass. Still not understanding what Anastasia was talking about, intuitively felt that something was about to unfold itself to me that would go way beyond the usual parameters of our existence, something directly concerning me. I asked Anastasia to tell me in more detail what she meant by altering my destiny and challenges. Listening to her at the time, I simply could not imagine how accurately her predictions would soon come to be realised in real life. She continued her recounting, once more bringing me back to events of the past year. Back then, on the ship, she said, you showed me everything, even your cabin, treated me to candles, offered me champagne, and then escorted me to the gangplank. But I did not leave the riverbank right away. I stood on the shore near some bushes, and I could see through the lightened windows of the bar how the young people of the villages were still dancing and having a good time. You showed me everything, but you did not take me to the bar. I guessed why. I was not appropriately dressed. My head was covered in a shawl. My cardigan was not stylish. My skirt was too long, but I could take off my shawl. My cardigan was neat and clean, and I had pressed my skirt carefully with my hands before I came to see you. It was true I had not taken Anastasia to the bar that evening, precisely on account of her rather strange clothes, beneath which, as it was now clear, this young girl had been hiding her remarkable beauty, something that immediately set her apart from everyone else. And I said to her, Anastasia, why would you have wanted to go to the bar? Do you mean you would have gone dancing there in your galoshes? Anyway, how would you know what dances young people do today? I was not wearing galoshes at the time. When I exchanged my mushrooms for money to buy a ticket to your ship, I also bought a pair of shoes from the same woman. Granted, they were old shoes and were tight on me, but I cleaned them with grass. As for dancing, all I would need is a one-time look, and that would be it, and what a dancer I would be. You were, I suppose, offended at me that night. I was not offended, but if you had taken me to the bar, I do not know whether that would have been a good or a bad move, but events might have turned out differently and all this might not have happened. But I do not now regret that events happened the way they did. So what happened? What happened that night that was so terrible? After you escorted me off the ship and did not return right away to your cabin, first you dropped in to see the captain, and then the two of you headed for the bar. For you, that was a normal thing to do. The moment you entered, you both made an impression on the public. The captain looked prim and proper in his uniform. You were very elegant and gave a most respectable appearance. You were known to many in this village, the famous Megri, the owner of the convoy of ships unique in these parts, and you fully realised that you were making an impression. You sat down at a table with 3 young country girls. They were all only 18 years old, just out of school. The waiters immediately brought champagne, candles and new wine glasses to your table, prettier than the ones that were there before. You took one of the girls by the hand, bent over and started whispering something in her ear. Compliments, I understand they are called. Then you danced with her several times and the conversation continued. The girl's eyes were radiant, and if she were in another world, a fairy tale world, as if she were in another world, a fairy tale world. You took the girl out on deck and gave her a tour of the ship just as you had me. You took her into your cabin and treated her to champagne and candles just like me. But there was something a little different in the way you behaved with this young girl. You were in a cheerful mood. With me, you were serious and even morose. But with her, you were cheerful. I could see all that very well through the lightened window of your cabin, and possibly I felt a little as though I wanted to be there in the place of that girl. You don't mean to tell me you were jealous, Anastasia. I don't know, it was somehow an unfamiliar feeling for me. I recalled that evening and these young country girls who were trying so hard to look older and more modern. The next morning, the captain and I once again had a laugh at their nighttime antics on the dock. The night before in my cabin, I'd realised that this girl was in such a state that she was ready to go to any lengths, but I didn't have any thought about wanting to possess her. I told Anastasia about this and she replied, "Still, you had stolen her heart." The two of you went out on deck. It was drizzling and you threw your jacket over the girl's shoulders. Then you took her back to the bar. What were you doing, Anastasia, standing the whole time in the bushes in the rain? That was nothing. The drizzle was good and caressing, only it interfered with my view, and I did not want my skirt and shawl to get wet. They were my mother's. My mother left them to me, but I was very lucky. I found a cellophane bag on the shore. I took off my skirt and shawl, put them in the bag and hid it under my cardigan. Anastasia, you didn't go home and it started to rain. You should have come back to the ship. I could not have done that. You had already seen me off and you had other concerns. Besides, everything was shutting down. When the party came to an end and the ship was due to depart, at the girl's request, especially the girl who was with you in the cabin, you delayed the departure. At that point, everything was in your power, including their hearts, and you were intoxicated with that power. With this power, the young people of the village were grateful to the girls, and the girls too felt imbued with a sense of power through you. They completely forgot about the young lads who were with them in the bar, guys they had been friends with in school. You and the captain escorted them to the gangplank. Then you went back to your cabin. The captain went up to the bridge, and then the signal sounded and the ship very slowly began to pull away from the docks. The girl you had danced with stood on the shore beside her girlfriends and the young people who had waited around to see the ship off. Her heart was beating so strongly it was almost trying to leap out of her breast and fly away. Her thoughts and feelings were all mixed up. Behind her back could be seen the outlines of the village houses and their darkened windows, while in front of her the sleek white steamship was departing forever, illuminated with the host of lights, still abundantly pouring forth its music across the water and the nighttime riverbank. The sleek white ship was where you were. After saying so many marvellous things to her she had never heard before, so charming and alluring, and all that was slowly distancing itself from her forever. Then she decided to do something in the sight of everyone. She squeezed her fingers into a fist and began shouting desperately, "I love you, Vladimir." And she did it again and again. Did you hear her shouting? Yes, I replied. You could not help hearing her, and members of your crew heard her too. Some of them were out on deck and began laughing at this girl. I did not want them to laugh at the girl. Then they stopped laughing, and as if they had suddenly come to their senses. But you did not come out on deck, and the ship continued slowly moving away. She thought you could not hear her, and she continued stubbornly crying out, "I love you, Vladimir." Then some of her girlfriends joined in, and they all cried out together. I wondered what the feeling was like, love, which makes people lose control of themselves, or perhaps I wanted to help that girl, and so I shouted with them, "I love you, Vladimir." It seemed as though I had forgotten for that moment that it was not enough just to simply utter words. There definitely had to be behind them feelings and awareness and trustworthiness of natural information. Now I know how strong that feeling is, and it is hardly subject to reason. Well, isn't that true? We all know that love is not subject to reason. This is why it's so insane when all of these boundaries are put around love. True love transcends all boundaries. And it's only the programming of the false matrix that makes us believe, let's say, for example, you meet someone you truly love lives in another country, or you meet someone you truly love is from a different faith or culture. Those are not boundaries to love. Love transcends that. And often part of our learning, our growth on this planet is to actually, our true loves will come from, there'll be perceived obstacles, like distance, let's say. But when you truly love someone, distance just melts away because you are connected energetically. You don't need to be in the physical same place. So, love completely transcends that, and it's actually crazy to expect love to fit into a certain box, to fit into certain rules that society says it fits into. I remember, I met someone in 2015, and honestly that felt like true love to me. It was definitely some part of my soul family, and whilst I understand now that relationship was there as a catalyst really, and an awakener, and a way for me to see lots of my deeply held subconscious wounds that needed healing. So I'm so grateful to that. But I remember talking to a friend about it, and that person lived at the opposite side of the country of me, and them saying to me, well, is it going to work because they live like at the opposite side of the country? And I was like, wow. It made me feel like that person has never experienced true love, because you experience love, unconditional love, all of those things simply melt away. They are not obstacles anymore. You find solutions to them, because love, true love, transcends all of that. So I think when people say things like that, they've never experienced that type of unconditional love where they would move mountains for it, right? They would do anything to transcend those false limiting beliefs. Okay, that tries to basically put out true love, because when two people come together in true love, that is powerful for the planet. That alone, that flame that is created between those two people is so powerful. It creates such a ripple, and that is why the whole society creates all these boundaries to love, all these rules around love, limitations around love, because it doesn't want that kind of love coming together because of how powerful it is. Okay, so it seemed as though I'd forgotten at that moment that it was not enough just to simply utter these words. They definitely had to be feelings behind them, an awareness, a trustworthiness of natural information. Now I know how strong that feeling is, and it is hardly subject to reason. The country girl later began to go into a slump and take to the bottle, and it was a challenge for me to help her. Now she is married and burdened down with everyday cares, and I have had to add her love to mine. The story of that girl threw me a little off balance. Anastasia's account managed to resurrect that evening in my memory in full detail, and everything had really happened just as she said. It was very real. Anastasia's unique declaration of love did not make any impression on me. After seeing her lifestyle and getting to know how she looked at the world, I saw her more and more as some unreal personage, even though she was sitting right beside me, and all I had to do was reach out my hand and touch her. A consciousness accustomed to judge things by other criteria could not accept her as an existing reality. And while at the beginning of our encounter I had been attracted to her, she no longer aroused me in the emotions I once had. I asked, "So you think these new feelings appeared in you just by chance?" "They are desirable, they are important," replied Anastasia. "They are pleasant even, but I wanted you to love me too. I realised that once you got to know me and my world a little more closely, you would not be able to accept me as a normal person, a simpler man. Perhaps you would even be afraid of me occasionally. And that is exactly what has happened. I myself am to blame. I have made many mistakes. I was anxious for some reason all the time. I was in a hurry and I did not have the time to explain everything to you as I should. Perhaps it has all just turned out silly, eh? Do I need to reform myself? And with those words, her lips hinted at a sad smile. She touched her breasts with her hands, and I at once remembered what had happened that morning when I was in the glade with Anastasia. Okay, I'm going to leave it there because I'm still recalibrating myself back into these energies at home. You know, I've been in a place in the Chiripo Mountains in Costa Rica, which is in the middle of the jungle, which has this amazing river running through it. It's been so peaceful and high vibration. I've been with some extremely high vibrational souls that are all on this dedicated path of deep healing our ancestral lines, of really stepping into our soul's destiny, of working with the land. So it's been a little bit of a energetic shock, let's say, coming back in to the world that I live in most of the time. So I'm still calibrating my energies, like I say, but I just wanted to, you know, it's been a good 2.5 weeks. I really wanted to do this reading today because I knew it would help me as well by doing it. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and I will be bringing out the next video really soon. Thank you.